Hello, it's JY, and welcome back to TalkShop, where we dive into the story, struggles, and insights of Singapore's boldest companies, business minds today. We're stepping into the world of executive search, right? The high stake game of finding leaders who can change the future of a company. So, my guest here today is Roger, a veteran with over 25 years of experience placing C suite and leadership talents across Asia Pacific, right? So, especially in the fast moving world of tech, startups, and high growth companies. So, as the founder of Olofsson and Company, Roger isn't just filling roles, he's helping businesses build legacies, right, Roger? Accurate so far?
That's right.
All
Jay, that's
right.
right. Yeah.
So today we are going beyond the boardroom. We're talking about the wins, the war stories, and the real wisdom that comes with the lifetime of working at the highest level. So, Roger, it's fantastic to have you on TalkShop. Thank you for being here. So sorry that things are a little bit ghetto, it's slightly slow and stuff like that. But I hope because this is like kind of like the second episode of TalkShop, right? So I hope that you can see the growth eventually where we really get into stuff, right? And see how we grow and things get a little bit better along the way. So to kick things off, I love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about what your company does and how you carved out your niche in this executive search world.
Cool. No, thanks, Jay, and thanks for having me on this podcast. I'm super excited about being, guest number two and being part of the sort of early stage of you getting this off the ground. And I don't mind the teething issues at all. I think that's exactly the way it should be. The way it should be. And we look
Thank
back
you.
at this and laugh about it and have a good.
We will
when we
have a
think,
good
like,
laugh
look,
about
look
that.
at what it was like and what it's become now, right? And
Yeah.
and that's all. That's the journey of of starting, initiatives, companies, enterprises, and a journey that I've been on now for a while as well with Olofsson and Company. So we are a executive search firm or a talent solutions firm that focus on startups and scale ups. Our initial focus was to help founders to build legacy, to build fantastic companies accessing the best talent in the marketplace that had the ability to produce exceptional outcomes to startups. And why startups? Because we are so excited about and so passionate about and such strong believers that startups are the business that are creating the future that we will be living in tomorrow and that we'll be working in tomorrow. So what could be more exciting than helping these founders to change the future for the better? And we then focus on leadership positions across sales, product, tech predominantly. Now we've taken that capability also to the enterprise world, because we feel that we have a mission as well to help eventually every single enterprise out there in the world will need to digitally transform if they're going to be able to stay relevant and be competitive. And we believe we have this amazing talent network now that we can also bring to the enterprises to help them to on their digital and AI transformation journey.
So you talked about a mission, right? So you mentioned a mission. Could you tell me more about this mission that you're trying to achieve with your company?
So it's really, I mean, in a way, okay, this might sound a little bit cheesy almost, but the work is one of the most important things in our lives, our work and career. We spend more time often with colleagues and in the office than we spend with our with our with our wives or husbands or families and friends and stuff. So it has such a big impact on a person's life. And when you really look at it as an executive search company, if you do it right and if you really focus always first principle based to make the right match between the right company, the right role, and the right person. And we are literally moving the needle on happiness on this planet one placement at a time, because we're moving from someone from a place where they are producing, maybe they have less satisfaction, they're less happy, they're frustrated or whatever in their current job, or they reach the ceiling, they don't feel they can produce as much or contribute as much. I mean, moving them from that state of relative happiness to a place where they are more happy, feel more fulfilled, and get more satisfaction out of their work.
So it's kind of like trying to match the right person to the right company or the right job.
That's
Is it?
right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how do you look for these people? Like, do they come to you, or you would have to be on the active search for all these people?
Oh wow, yeah, and that's what we spent. I mean, I've been fortunate and blessed to spend 25 years of my, so a quarter of a century, long time, uh, doing this. Doing in this industry, and based in Singapore, and focus on tech, which means, I've just, out of by accident, if you like, become one of the most experienced people in this space in this part of the world, and that's enabled us to learn a lot from experience, and build methods or approaches that we believe are producing exceptional results to both our clients and our candidates. And a lot of it is, for us, it's very search driven. So we actually really go out, and we're very good at, or we built capabilities or methods to identify the search universe, which is a word that we use to explain or to describe where are these right talent sitting today that you're looking for as a client, if you're looking for this particular role. And then we've built techniques to go out and then both identify them, but also engage with them successfully, the
Mhm.
talent, to make them interested and excited about the opportunity.
Ah,
And so that's where a lot of the magic is, to get the engagement, to get the right candidates into the process, engage with them. And we often say that to our clients as well, that it's very important. One of the most important jobs that we do, um, as long as we do it accurately and truthfully, and with the right intentions in mind, but it is to be your mouthpiece, to be like your ambassador or your salesperson to the talent in the market. Is the first person they're going to meet that's going to promote you or make them attracted in you on your offering is us. And
yes.
if we do a good job, that can make the difference between finding the best talent in the marketplace for you, or it can mean that you're never getting a chance to even have a conversation with them.
That's great. So you mentioned that you kind of accidentally became really good at what you guys do. So you have been in this business for 25 years,
That's
right?
right.
So I'm interested in, how did you start this particular business? Like, where did it start? Did it come to you like, say, oh, I'm gonna be an executive search business owner? What made you choose this particular industry?
That is such a good question, Jay, and it's and and it could potentially be a very long answer. It depends on how much time we have, and how
All the
far.
time in the world, man.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And so, but if we're gonna take it back a little bit, so one thing that was kind of a little bit unusual, I think, with me was that when I grew up, my mom reminded me about this a number of years ago, that already as a 7-year-old, I knew that I wanted to start a business.
Okay.
And I played all the other games as you do as a child, and cowboy and Indians, and police and thief, and all of those kind of things. But I was already then playing with I had a plastic briefcase with pretend contracts
Oh
and
God.
play money, and I was making deals and signing contracts and stuff. And so that was something that was there with me from very early age. And I was also, at a very early age, I was very interested in Asia. For some reason, as a kid already, anything that I could consume about Asia on TV and stuff, which I did. Whether it was National Geographic's type of episodes about nature and wildlife and stuff, or programs about culture and people, or things like samurai movies from Japan, or kung fu movies from China, and I was just attracted to this part of the world and the cultures here already from a very young age. And then the third one, maybe a little bit more personal, is that, and that came a little bit later, but when I got into an age where I started to think about, I could vision and imagine, settling down and starting a family and having a wife and stuff. My life partner, I already started to feel like, for some reason, that the person would come from this part of the world, from Asia.
Okay.
And
Okay.
and all of those things have happened. I ended up in Asia, been in Singapore for 28 years now, since 1996.
Oh wow.
Married to a beautiful Singaporean wife, and we have these amazing Singaporean twin daughters. And
Ah, that is so great, man.
yeah,
Twin daughters.
yeah. And then I finally got to start a business as well 7.5 years ago when we launched Olofsson and Company. And but then coming back to, so I came to Singapore in 1996 as an exchange student to finish my engineering degree
Mhm.
at NTU. I think I was the first, maybe the first or second batch of exchange students that came to NTU, and it was an awesome experience. I'm so grateful for that, because I didn't come here I got to experience Singapore much more as a local,
Okay.
living on the campus, sharing a student dorm with a scholar student from Malaysia that was doing triple E, and of course, I learned to know a lot of local students as well as other expat students from other parts of the world, and it was a great start to my journey here in Singapore and in Asia.
So you mentioned that you came to Singapore for an internship. Was there a reason why you specifically chose Singapore, or was it like a chance thing?
So I came not an internship, but as an exchange student.
Ah, exchange
Yeah,
student,
yeah.
yes.
So I had been backpacking in Asia in 94, 95, including Singapore, all the way from China to Vietnam, Indonesia, Singapore, Thailand, etc., Malaysia. And that was during the days of the Southeast Asian economies were referred to back then as the tiger economies of Southeast Asia.
Mhm.
All the countries here, the main six Southeast Asian countries, had double-digit GDP growth year on year. It was like a gold rush here. It was so much energy, so much growth, and so much excitement about the future. And in Europe, that wasn't the case. It felt like it was a bit stale. People were a little bit, we had a good life, but mostly we didn't appreciate it, mostly complained about it. And it felt like the best days were over and it was downhill from there. That's at least the way I felt. And here it was so energizing. So after that, I was supposed to go to the US as an exchange student. But when I came back to Singapore to Sweden for my second trip, there was 15 students from Singapore at my home university, and 15 Singaporeans. And I just went straight to them and said, "Hey, you're my people. This is great. I just come from your country. I just came off a flight from Singapore and I want to hang out with you guys." So we learned to know each other really well. We went for a lot of skiing together and I taught them how to ski. That's one of
Oh
the
wow.
passions that I had in the past, to be a ski instructor and stuff. And I realized if they have come here, that means I should be able to go there. So I
Mhm.
tore up my exchange study agreement with the US university.
Okay, wait.
And
You tore up your chance to go to
Yes.
US for exchange for Singapore.
For the chance, I didn't even know if I was going to get accepted. So
Oh,
because
wow, okay.
I had to reject that in order to be able to reapply. So then I reapplied to this program with NTU
Okay.
and got selected, fortunately. And yeah, I did. So I thought I can go to the US anytime, but I want to go back to Asia.
Okay.
And so I came here with a backpack and a suitcase in 1996. Supposed to be here for 10 months, and now it's 28 years later, and Singapore has become home. I love this place. I have two home countries now, I feel like, even though I'm a PR, I'm not a Singaporean citizen, but this feels as much as my home as Sweden does.
How does this is something that I'm a little bit interested in, because as a Singaporean, it's always this question we ask ourselves every National Day, I suppose, right? What does it mean to be a Singaporean, right? What does it mean to know that you are a Singaporean or you belong in Singapore? I guess for myself, probably it's the language of Singaporeans, because we have a certain way we speak the English, we call it Singlish and stuff like that, right? So I'm interested, Roger, like why do you feel like you belong, you feel a sense of home in Singapore?
So yeah, good question, Jay. And I think and I love Singlish. I think that's a great part of the identity in Singapore, and I can throw a few laws and stuff as well. And it's but I think when you talk about the national parade, and I watched that. I've watched that quite a few times on TV. Normally, I wouldn't go necessarily down to the parade itself, but I get I get so touched when I see that, and I see the what this country has accomplished, the people in this country has accomplished over just less than 3 generations, and which normally would take hundreds of years for any other country to do, has been done in 3 generations. And but I can also see, and I know it's not done. It's not been done easily. It's not been done without sacrifices. It's been a lot of challenges, and the way it started, there was, you had nothing to go for it. There was a little port and a small town in the jungle on a little island with no natural resources.
Yes.
And from here, we've been able to build one of the most successful, most advanced nations on the planet. And I think, and I think and we always get home blind, and we don't see, you know, eh, all the good things that we have
Oh, that's
in
a
our own
great
country.
term, the home blind, man. I'm gonna start using that. Yeah, that's so true, man. Because some of my friends who are slightly well traveled, they do come back and say that actually Singapore is quite okay, right? The other countries may okay, there are some friends that actually do migrate to other countries. They decide to settle there. But a lot of my friends who come back from overseas say that yeah, Singapore is still one of the better place to be at. But with that said, is there was that the reason why you decided to start the company here in Singapore specifically?
And yeah, I think there were a number I mean, there was just there was definitely the natural choice for me being based in Singapore for
And why
so
is that?
long. And because I'd been here for so long, and I built a very strong network here, and a lot of expertise both in Singapore and in this part of the world. But if I was going to be based, focus on executive search for startups, scale ups, tech companies in Asia, which was our starting point, even though we started to do more global work now as well. Singapore was the obvious choice, with the geographical location. It is just geographically, naturally, a really good hub for Asia, certainly Southeast Asia, but even Greater Asia. It's pro business. It's very easy to set up a business here, and the rules, the regulations are clear, in most cases, very consistent and stable. And the administrative aspects of setting up a company is very easy. You have good rule of law, which is very important. So you don't have
Mm.
to, worry about, maybe having certain ownership structures where you potentially could be maneuvered out of your own business and these kind of things. And you don't have to worry about any of those things in Singapore. And then it is a it's a really good infrastructure in terms of the support around businesses as well. Even things like you know the 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 efforts the government did as well around COVID to help out was were phenomenal.
I think as a Singaporean man, I would like to thank you very much for all the beautiful compliments that we have. So
This is a beautiful country. You guys have done an amazing job, and I feel very grateful to be, still like a guest, but a long term guest, and and I've benefited greatly from, this country has allowed me to build an amazing life that I'm very grateful for.
can lah, can lah, can
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
lah. Okay, so let's go on to something that is about your company, something closer to heart.
Mm.
Can you share with me a personal story, right? A personal win for the company, like maybe your first placement of a C-suite person, or maybe your first project. What was the biggest win that you had?
So there are I mean, there are probably a couple. There are a few different things. There were so many amazing things that happened in the first couple of years, in the beginning when we started. It was just I tell you, I'd go back a little bit even and say, it's not an easy thing to, at least for me, it wasn't easy to build up the courage to start a business. And at that time, I was also a slightly older founder. So I wasn't like a 22-year-old that has nothing to lose. And so I had already my twin daughters and, responsibilities to the family and stuff. So it was really, really scary. And there were a lot of signs that happened during that time when I was really starting to feel like I have to do this. This is one of the things. So it was one of these experiences that, I could feel very strongly that if I don't do this, I will regret it for the rest of my life.
So
That I know.
when did you get that feeling that you had to do this? Well, that's you talked about many
Yeah,
signs, right? That they came
yeah.
about. Can you tell me more about those signs?
So they started to, that there was particularly in sort of the year leading up to starting. We launched the business in January 2018, so just short of 7.5 years ago. And that year leading up to it, there was a lot of signs, a lot of interesting things happening. One, I was at this startup conference filled with startups and founders and VCs, lots of venture capital guys. So it felt like it should be like a very kind of capitalistic, very business focused, kind of quite a um, aggressive, competitive type of atmosphere and environment. But it ended up being like, so I listened to this guy that I learned to know after, who was running his own venture capital fund, and he is one of these guys that belongs to this clique called the PayPal Mafia. So yeah, there is something called the PayPal Mafia that is
Oh,
very
God.
famous, and which is that was the original people, the first maybe 40, 50 people that were part of PayPal when they started. And the reason why they call it the PayPal Mafia is because one, a very unusual number of these original members were very successful in ventures of their own when they moved out of PayPal and started their own business stuff. So they had a very high percentage of that original group that actually went off and started other very successful startups and scale ups. So it's one of the reasons they're called the PayPal Mafia. The second is they were also unusual in the fact that they stayed together.
Mhm.
After going their separate paths, they still maintained contact and they built this network and they continued to support each other and helping each other out and stuff in a
Okay.
way that we haven't seen before. So or not seen that often. And they even did a piece that was in New York Times, I think, where most of them had gotten together in a bar in Brooklyn. I think it was in
Oh
Brooklyn.
wow.
So yeah,
Let's yeah.
like almost like where we are now in the Brooklyn bar, right? A
Yes.
shout out to the Brooklyn bar,
All
which is an
right.
amazing location and just an awesome setting for a podcast as well. But so they did this piece where they were all dressed up in like pinstriped suits, like and smoking cigars and drinking whiskey and setting it up as an old mafia scene from The Godfather or something like that.
Okay.
And which was it was just a really cool thing. And so this guy belonged to this PayPal Mafia, so really successful guy. Started up his own hedge fund, venture capital fund, and he gave us this advice. And I spoke to him after, and he shared with me as well. And he shared quite a lot of wisdom with me. And but he said that if you if you really want to do something in the deepest innermost part of yourself, and it's something that you really also truly believe is going to make the world a better place, that's going to bring something to the world, then don't then do it. Don't, even if it's scary, have the courage, go into it. If you commit yourself, you will find almost like that the universe will shape itself around you. You will people will come into your life that will support you and help you, and all kinds of things will happen to support this cause. So it actually was a very I didn't expect it to be such like a spiritual advice in this venture capital startup big conference thing, right? Where I just thought everybody was just thinking about maximizing
Dollar and
returns
cents,
and
right?
making money. Yeah, exactly. And that touched me at that time, was the kind of stuff that I needed to hear from a successful person like that. And and that's around that time that my co-founder also had started to we'd started it was someone that I'd known for a long time, Simon Roding, that had built consulting firms in the past, been very successful. He had been a client of mine for many years. He had become available in terms of his life situation where he could look at different things, and we started to talk about setting up a talent firm, a search firm together, focusing on particularly the startups, the scale ups, the new tech, the fast growth, hyper growth space. Um, and we did a lot of work for a year in terms of market research, building a business plan, looking at the competitive landscape, testing it out, and and we got really confident that there was the market, particularly for startups and scale ups. We felt it's such an important market because, as I said earlier, that's where it, that's where the future is being created in the present moment in startups. Innovation doesn't happen in corporates these days.
Could
It
you
happens in
tell me more about
startups.
that? So what I'm hearing is that the bigger companies typically are not the ones to try to rock the boat, so to speak, right?
Yeah,
So in your words, you are saying that the startups are the ones that are coming up with the newer ideas to change kind of like how we function, how we do certain things. Could you
yeah.
elaborate more on that?
No, a great question. And so the actually, maybe the best way to explain it is Sam Altman, that is the CEO of OpenAI, so one of the most famous AI and tech guys on the planet currently, right? Given that ChatGPT now has 500 million weekly active users and just taken the market by storm, right? And created a new category in terms of Gen AI. So Sam Altman, before he became the founder or co-founder of OpenAI, he was the CEO of YC, Y Combinator, which is the most famous, probably the most famous incubator for startups. So that invest and help and support founders at a very early stage. They're so popular now, so that their claim to fame is that it's harder for a founder to get accepted by YC, Y Combinator. It's harder to get accepted by them than to get an entry admission to Harvard if you want to study. And so that says quite a
Okay.
lot, because we know
Okay.
Harvard is kind of not easy to get into, right?
Yes.
So they had in the last batch, they do 2 batches a year, sometimes 3. In the last batch, they had 27,000. If I remember correctly, I think it was 27,000 applicants. They selected 260, so 0.9%.
Oh, wow.
So Sam Altman was the CEO of Y Combinator for a number of years, very successful. And then during that time, he was having a talk that you can find on YouTube as well, where he explains this principle really well, clearer than I've ever heard before. He said it's the rule of one yes instead of the rule of one no.
Okay.
If you're in a corporate environment and you have this idea and you have this
Yes.
like, man, I think this could change the world. This would be amazing. And you have to then build a business case to
Mm-hmm.
try to get funding for this.
Mm-hmm.
All it takes in the chain of command in a corporate, which could be 20 people long, is one person saying no, not
Sure.
liking the
Yes.
idea, and it
Yes.
kills it.
Yes.
There goes your $500,000. There goes the dream of trying this out, getting a chance
Mm-hmm.
to see if it works or not, right? So naturally, the corporates are very risk adverse because they have that chain of command and so many chances just that one no will kill the idea. In the world of venture capital backed startups, there the rule is reversed. It's the rule of one yes. All it takes is one VC saying, yes, I like you. I like your face. I believe in you.
Okay.
I believe in your idea. So my thesis on that is that if you are of course, if you're not a very capable founder and your idea is lousy, you're probably not going to get off the
Sure.
ground. No one is going to invest in you. But if you're a smart founder, like a good, capable person, and you have a really good idea, then I actually think in the VC world, you're almost guaranteed to get funding as long as you don't give up. Don't give up. You're going to get rejected many times, but there's always another door to knock on. There are thousands of VCs across the globe. There's about 400 VCs in Singapore now,
Mm-hmm.
and thousands across the globe. So if you just don't give up, you continue to knock on those doors and you refine your pitch, you're probably going to get the chance, at least a chance to try out your idea.
That's
And
great.
yeah, that's why it's such a what do you call it, nutritious, or such a nutritious, a fertile ground for innovation and startups and risk taking. Look at Google, for example. I mean, Google was a startup 25 years ago, but they're
Yes.
not anymore, right? They're one of the biggest, absolutely biggest companies on the planet. They invented the transformer architecture in 2017.
In such a
That-
short time frame, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They've grown in such a short time frame, but they have now started to become the corporate and risk adverse.
Mm.
So they invented something called the transformer architecture in a paper called Attention is All You Need in 2017. There was actually that's the architecture that sits in ChatGPT. That's the stuff to be used for generative AI today. OpenAI only came out with ChatGPT in the market in November 2022, 2.5 years ago. Google had already invented this in 2017, 5 years earlier, 7 years from present moment, right? 7, 8 years ago. They sat on it. They didn't do anything with it
Hmm.
because they had started to become more of a risk-adverse corporate.
I see.
So we need the startups are always where the new ideas going to come from. If you look at everything that we have around us today, like iPads and iPhones and things that we use like Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Grab, Uber, all these things that have changed the way we live our lives today, and
Yes.
often the way Zoom, etc., we do business. They were all they didn't exist 20 years ago. Most of these companies, none of these tools, and apart from maybe Samsung, is invented by, and even Samsung, then you would argue, is amazing at copying probably more than inventing.
Sure. Yes.
And they've done a great job with that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing that. Okay, so I understand now the attraction of all these startups and all the tech stuff, right? But can you share with us and the kind of difficulties or any challenges you face working with the startups? As
Oh,
a
yeah.
s- yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's lots of it. But the thing is, again, I still going to continue to talk about the positives. It's like, it is so, founders, people that are crazy enough to start companies,
Uh-huh.
in a way, they're not the normal personality type, the average type of person. They are extreme in some ways, either in a combination of self-belief or, confidence or a vision, ability to see the future and believe in it, in a contrarian view and an ability to see things in a different way than other people do. That persistence and grit, never giving up, that courage to actually go out and do it rather than talking about it. A lot of us like talking about things,
Yes.
but not so many are actually taking a
Doing
step
it.
to doing
Yes.
it, right?
Yes.
And those are the founders. And that type of personality, the energy around them is so amazing to be around. So I can never get enough of it. And I'm an extroverted person, so I feed off, I get energized by being with people like that, right?
Yes.
And so I'd love it. It's the best thing, to work with founders. And then of course, their expectations are high. They're asking, they're hiring. The hiring for a founder in a startup becomes a lot more personal. I always tell that and coach my team as well about that as well. When you hire for a corporate, the person, your hiring manager, is just hiring a staff that's going to fulfill a function in the job that they're doing. But it's just a job. Just even though we talk about the job being also very important, right? But it's still
Yes.
just a job. For a founder, it's their creation. Often founders often refer to starting companies. It's like having a baby, and
Yes.
and
Yes.
and nurturing a child,
Yes.
and they're that emotionally connected to it. So for them, hiring becomes a lot more personal, a lot more important, a lot more critical, and that's also where I find we understood that better than the other search firms out there. We understood that we have to become really good at getting it right the first time and every time when we hire, because getting it wrong is so costly for a founder in a startup. If you make one hiring mistake in the beginning of setting up a company in a critical role, it could be the difference between success and failure. If not picking on DBS, but DBS is a good example of a big corporate locally, right, that everybody knows. DBS have about 27,000 people. If they make a hiring mistake, that's like a rounding error.
It's just a statistic, right?
Exactly. It's a statistic,
Yes.
right? It doesn't, I mean, of course, it's still regrettable and you want to avoid it because it has an impact on people's lives and stuff, but it doesn't make a big difference to the company. Whilst for a startup, it's life and death in a way. And that makes it, to be part of that is an honor, is an honor to be allowed to be trusted to be part of that process and to help founders to find those right people that can help them to realize their vision, their dreams. And hopefully, if they're correct on that vision, they will change the world for the better.
Okay. So I would like to ask something a little bit off topic. So if you were to have a time machine, right? So would you go back, in the first year of your business? What advice would you give yourself when you see yourself in the past?
Oh wow, what a good that is such a good question. Really good question, Jay. And I would probably give myself a couple of pieces of advice. And one would be that don't don't drink your own Kool-Aid. Don't get too
Mm-hmm.
confident, too overconfident if things goes well for you. We had a very good start to the business, and everybody said, "Wow, this is a great start," and never seen this is amazing. And you know the and I think it was I started to make sometimes I started to make some of the wrong decisions as a result of that as well. I became just a little bit complacent, and it took quite a bit of uh, hardship and difficulties that came around the corner to realize that, and to realize that, oh man, no, I don't, I'm not, I didn't think before I started, I didn't think maybe that I was good enough or capable enough to start a business and build it. And then after a while, I thought I was, I probably thought too highly of myself and thought, wow, look at that, look at all the great things we're doing, and maybe I have a big part to play in it. And the truth was somewhere in between, right? I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't as bad as I thought before I started, and I wasn't as good as I thought when I was at that sort of early initial peak.
Yes.
So I think to remain humble, I think, is so important, and to just continue. And it's like my business partner says, is building a business is relentless. It never stops, and you just have to continue to put the hard work in. You just have to continue to put that energy and hard work in, that grit. And second is, when I was hiring people, I was I wasn't clear myself how hard it is to build a startup, to build a company
So,
from a
so,
small
so wait,
base.
let me cut you off there. When you said hiring people for the companies or for your own?
For myself.
For your own.
Exactly.
Okay.
Great
Okay.
question. Yes, for myself. So I was kind of painting a picture that was a bit too rosy. It's like, oh, this is going to be great. We can do super flexible hybrid working arrangements even before COVID had happened. So we were very early with these things. I believe in work-life balance. You can manage, a full life, outside and with family and stuff, and still do a great job being part of a startup. And we're gonna have we have so many we have so much contact surface, so we're gonna be able to help you a lot to become successful. And I realized it was the wrong guidance and the wrong advice. I believed it myself, but
Mhm.
I couldn't see it yet because I hadn't experienced it. That it's really hard. It's really tough to just survive as a business. Most startups, 90% of startups, apparently, according to stats, doesn't make it beyond 2 years.
Yes.
So it's brutal. It's really
Very
survival of
brutal,
the fittest. And so you have to be better, smarter, and better, hopefully, than a lot of the competitors out there. But there's no shortcut. You have to work harder. You just have to work harder as well. And I got better at that after that initial experience of not having positioned us correctly
Mhm.
and it not working out for some of the people that came on board with us.
What do you
Uh,
mean by not positioning yourself properly?
So I made I like thought it was going to be easier than what it was. So I started to adjust my screening and my pitch to people that we were looking to hire ourselves as well. I was looking for different traits, looking for different backgrounds that were more suitable to what we needed. And I was able to be, it wasn't like I wasn't honest about it before, but I didn't understand it. So I was able to now give a more accurate picture of what it was going to be like. And I said, this is not going to be easy. If you want an easy job, if you want the faster path to be successful, if all you care about is to try to maximize the amount of revenue you can make and the commissions you can make as a recruitment consultant or executive search consultant, and with the minimum amount of time and effort put into it, then we're not it.
Mm.
We're not right. This is not what we do. We do very difficult assignments. We work with extremely demanding founders. We work with a huge set of startups in very different tech domains. Many of them new tech domains that didn't exist a couple of years ago. So you have to really be curious and thirsty and hungry for knowledge, and you need to be quite smart, book smart and sharp in terms of picking things up.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to be ready to work really, really hard. So if that's not for you, then if that doesn't resonate, then we're probably not right. So I got a lot better at being able to position it correctly. And that was one of my biggest, hardest learning experiences myself. Yeah.
I think for any company that is beginning to start up, it's always the thing that okay, as a business owner, right? I would love to have the business start off right from the get-go, right? Things are going well, everything's in place where money's coming in, profits coming in, everyone's
Yeah.
happy. I think that is nice, but like what you said, right? It is actually a very I will think that there's a trap. It's very easy to get into the mode saying that, hey, maybe we're doing something right here.
Mm.
And then like you start to become like yourself complacent, start to make the wrong decisions. And then when you did make those wrong decisions, right? How did you get out of it?
That is a good question as well. And I mean, it's you just have to. And this was also learn. This was a big learning experience for me as well. That I had to start. I'd always been, even though I was entrepreneurial and I did a little startup adventure when we were studying at university back in Sweden, and I worked in, freelance sales and all kinds of things over the, in my early days. And I was a minority partner in an early stage executive search firm before as well. But I wasn't the main founder. I came on board when it was 1 year old, 1.5 years old. The main founder was kind of the guy that ran it, and he was an ex colleague of mine, great guy, Angus Washington, but this was the first time that I was, a founder and a business owner, and I had to learn that as well. To start to think as a business owner rather than a management executive. An
Mm-hmm.
executive that manages a business on behalf of someone else, and you really have to put you have to you have to really get into the mindset of always as a very important first principle, look at what's right. You have to put the company first, what's right for the company, because if you don't, then eventually it won't be around for the people or the
Yes.
clients, right?
Yes.
So you have to make the decisions that are right for that, and you have to be one of the sort of core principles that we have as a business is that we try to always be fair and equitable, to
Mm.
always be fair and equitable and honest. And um, and I needed to be, if there were decisions that I made that didn't work out for the business, then I also needed to, as when I realized and saw it, I needed to be fair and equitable and honest towards the business as well, and make decisions that needed to be made to get the business back on track. And sometimes those decisions were uncomfortable, were not the easy decisions to make. Um, and those were the decisions that I was the worst at making and the most scared about, because I didn't, I didn't want to disappoint anyone or upset anyone, and
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes you have to do that.
So Roger, let's take it back to the first wins of your business where you first started. You want to talk more about that?
Yeah, no, that's yeah, exactly. Those are so crucial and so important, and again, it comes back to that the story about that PayPal mafia guy and his advice that the universe will kind of shape itself around you and support you, and that was exactly the experience that I felt in starting the business as well. We had we got at the very immediately when we started, we got this opportunity to work with Sing Life, which is
Mm.
which is had just started maybe not that much earlier than us, and
Yes.
they just received a $40 million Series A round of funding, which was a massive round back in those days in
Very
2018,
massive.
and we got to become their exclusive partner to build their product and engineering team in the early days. And we worked very close. I learned to know Walter Diode, who was the co-founder and CEO, and we worked very closely with James Shanahan, who was the chief of staff that subsequently became the CEO for Revolut in Singapore, which is
Mm-hmm.
a great, very famous fintech company,
Yes.
one of the largest, most successful fintech companies on the planet. And Walter has become, I mean, he's almost like in the fintech, insurtech space, startup in the ecosystem here. He's like a bit of a rock star, he's amazing. They built a very successful company that became an multi-stage exit journey that ended up in a final exit to Sumitomo
Mm-hmm.
Insurance Corporation, I think, at a $4.6 billion valuation, um, which is all in public information and stuff. And he's now started a new fintech startup called Chocolate Finance, who we are also working with.
Okay.
And so that was amazing to get an opportunity like that. We were literally like maybe 3 weeks old as a company when that opportunity came to us.
But how did that opportunity come to you? Do you find it, or do you like stumble upon?
Oh, good question. It's a lot, Jay, is about relationships and,
Yes, social
building
capital.
long-term relationships, social capital, trying to do right by people, as often as you can, right? And to try to be of service and help and maybe give a little bit rather than just taking, which has become a big life philosophy for me that life is actually about giving, not taking. And so I'd known James Shanahan for a long time. We'd worked together for many years. And when he had started with Sing Life and they needed to build this product and tech capability, he knew that I just started up my business and that I had this
Mm-hmm.
background experience doing this. And so he reached out, and the opportunity came through a long-term relationship like that. And then that enabled us to then build an amazing relationship with Walter and his team as well. And the relationship with Walter has persisted, and it's an amazingly strong relationship that has now persisted and grown for the last 7+ years. Um, and so they just show the value of relationships and as you said, social capital. Another win that came a little bit later that was kind of a crucial one. So we established ourselves in the early stage startup ecosystem, maybe as one of the strongest players.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have built a really strong brand in that space now. We're quite known in the startup and VC ecosystem in Singapore and Southeast Asia. Um, and but another win that came for us about a year in was with the big tech or mid tech, so a much larger firm, but still tech, fast growth, private equity owned.
Yep.
And they needed to hire an MD for APAC. This was a very senior role.
Mm.
We were, and again, this came through referral of someone that I'd worked with before for many
Okay.
years that had joined, that was now in this company in the talent acquisition side. And she reached out and asked if this is something we wanted to do and could do.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to go in and pitch to the chief HR officer and
Yep.
the global chief operating officer that was visiting from overseas. This was a global company. And we outcompeted the biggest brands in executive search on this planet.
Wow.
They
Okay.
were all presenting and wanting to win this deal.
Okay.
And we won it. We got it awarded, and I was blown away. And actually, a story the chief operating officer told us later that when he went back and told his CEO, the CEO in headquarters asked, "Who have you selected for this important search for the MD of APAC?"
Okay.
And he said, "Oh, we've selected Olofsson Company." And he just said, "Olofsson and who? Who is that? Never heard of them." And he said, "Trust me, we have interviewed all the leading executive search firms
Uh-huh.
in Singapore, and these guys knows tech better than all of them."
So now I'm interested. How does executive search pitch sound like?
It's that's a good question. I think that is a I don't think I can. I'm not very good at enacting things, and
Sure.
like replaying things. It's more of
Okay.
an in the moment thing. But we're but it's really it's actually it's not different to any other sales in a way. And
Mhm.
if you realize that sales is so, my co-founder Simon says it in the best and he says in the best way. I think he says that sales, when you really think about it, sales is nothing else than going out there and identifying people that
Mhm.
have a problem that they need help with,
Yes.
that you are uniquely qualified to help them with. That's all.
Uniquely qualified to help them. I think that's an interesting thing. I've
Mm.
never heard that one before.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You
Yeah.
also talked about as a company you did a lot of giving rather than taking, right? But I know for one, as I run the bar and stuff like that, right? I do realize that when sometimes if you were to be giving too much, people do overstep. their boundaries. It might be the staff, it might be the guest that comes along. Have you faced the kind of difficulties before?
And I suppose, yeah, I'm trying to think about it, and um, I think you do. It has to be over time. I think it's a partnership.
Yes.
With any a customer in the bar or staff, our
Yes.
staff, whether it's in a bar or in an office environment, our clients, our candidates, and that's why where our principle of being fair and equitable, and think long term comes in. So in any relationship that's going to persist over time, it has to be fair and equitable. It has to be an exchange that goes both ways. If it's
Mm-hmm.
only one side winning all the time and taking, and the other side is giving, it's not going to last for the long term, right? And
Yes.
it's fair to express that then and be honest about it and
To say
say,
that this
yeah,
isn't working.
exactly. I wanna help you, but there's a limit to how much time I can spend helping you for free. Because if I was doing
Yes.
that to everyone or with everyone, we would cease to exist as a business, and I wouldn't be able
Yes.
to help anyone anymore. So I do, at some point of time, we need to get to a place where we can figure out a way to have some kind of commercial mechanism that works for both you as well as for me or for us as a company.
So kind of like meet in between everyone's needs, kind
Yeah,
of thing, right?
exactly. And most people, that you really want to build long-term relationships with, they will not want to take advantage of you for the long term. If they do, then it's not the right relationship.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah.
I will agree.
So, and I've always been. Some people are really paranoid about getting getting taken advantage of, and like if I'm, for example, if I in our business, if you do some work for someone without before you even signed a contract, in some people would say
yes.
don't do it, etc.
Uh-huh.
But I'm not worried about that. I prefer to have, and I think I naturally, to a large degree, almost have a mindset where my default position is to trust you
Okay.
from the start. I don't
Until you.
until proven wrongly, right?
Yes.
Until proven otherwise. So rather than starting at the point that you have to prove yourself first before I trust you, then it means I have to work with thousands of people that I don't trust until you've proven that I can trust you. And that's a tiring
Such
place
a
to
tiring
be in,
process,
right?
right? Yeah.
Rather than being like, okay, at the start, we start at the point I trust you, and we can start doing some work together, and we see how it goes. And my philosophy is that if you are an honest person
Mhm.
that honestly want to build a relationship with us, then I'm going to be proven right down the road. And if you're not, and you want to take advantage of me, then I'm one. I might as well. It's the sooner I find out about it, the better,
No,
right?
of course, yes.
It's better that I find out immediately when we start, or 1 week in, rather than 2 years down the road,
Yep.
when maybe we have invested more into each other and I have more to lose.
That's
right?
true. That's
So
true.
it's not such
That's
a bad
true.
thing. If I find out that someone is not trustworthy, then we might as well test it from the start. And second, another thing that I say as well, and is that, so I might be able to. So again, someone might be able to, if you have that approach, maybe I can get taken advantage of once,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not going to happen twice.
That's true.
Now I know, right,
Yes.
that you can't. This person can't be trusted, and then we move on from that.
Okay. Speaking of trust, so have you ever had a moment when you wanted to stop this business? When perhaps somebody has taken more than they gave. Was there a point in the business where you thought that, okay, maybe I don't really want to do this anymore?
It was. I had so when we had gone through the initial part of COVID was extremely stressful and
Mhm.
very scary, because we didn't know how long it was going to go on for, how bad it was going to get.
Yes.
The whole world closed down for a period of time. And trust me, when that happens, no one is hiring anyone.
Definitely.
Apart from
no.
maybe the government's hiring people to do COVID tests and stuff, right?
Yes,
and
sure.
maybe the pharmaceuticals were hiring a little bit for, but that wasn't our space, hiring for their research, their vaccine research centers and
Yes.
stuff. But the rest of the world was quiet and still, and it was very scary. So we went through that. But then we had a little bit of an upswing after that with the digital transformation wave that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So we had about a year and a half that was really good. But then in early 2022, the funding winter kicked in, the
Mm-hmm.
crypto markets dropped, and big tech stopped hiring and started retrenching mid 2022. And there was all our markets. And
Yeah.
it got so hard. 2022, second half of 2022 and 23 was so hard for us. And it was just about, we just needed to work so hard just to stay alive.
How,
And
how do
just,
you pull, how do you pull through that period? It was I remember it was a very, very tough period for a lot of companies.
yeah,
So how did you pull it through?
yeah. In some, honestly, I started to get, my own personal journey was that I started to get a lot of self doubt. Can I do this?
Mm-hmm,
Maybe I'm
mm-hmm.
not suited to be an MD or a CEO or a founder or leader of a business. And this, this is just, if you're almost losing the business here now, this several years in, and then there was at times we didn't see any end in sight, how long it was going to go on for. And I was almost, I had to, for me, I almost had to lose the business, almost give it away in a way to realize how much I love this.
What do you
Again,
mean by that?
so I went into a process where I actually started to look for someone external to
Okay.
come in and actually take on the key leadership role. I would
Oh,
still
wow.
work in the business,
Okay.
but I would bring someone in to be like the MD.
Someone
or
to
take
lead
the-
it. Okay.
Exactly. Because I think I was started. I had too much self doubt. I was probably almost burnt out, or you know, started to lose steam,
Mm-hmm.
and for a number of reasons, it almost happened, but last minute it didn't happen. There were some things that changed in the person, in the whole situation, and we ended up not going ahead. And that was the moment that things changed for me, and I realized that I love this. I love this, and I want to do it. I can do it, and somehow, the energy and the motivation and passion came back, and
Okay.
I haven't looked back since. Since then, we pushed through. We survived. It was close a couple of times, but we survived. We kept the team, um, and there were some changes, some people leaving, but we brought some new great people on board, and then now over the last year plus, it's just we've had an amazing time. It started to thrive again because tech is back.
Yes.
AI is changing the world, and
Yes.
we are in the center of it.
That's great. So I love it. So when it's so important to know why you are starting the business or why you are continuing in the business, right? So in your case, you had to sort of like let it go before you realize that this is something that I cannot go without.